we have Sophia Harris on the podcast this week, and you might be able to tell that I'm a little bit excited. I feel like there's a lot of stuff that I want to cover. So let's just dive into it. Sophia, would you mind giving us a little bit of your background, like where you're from, what you do? I just want to know, like, all the things.
Absolutely. I'll try and keep it brief so that we don't send people to sleep straight away. But, but yeah, so I am Sophia. I'm a nutritionist and a food relationship coach. And I have had my nutrition coaching company, Apollo Nutrition, named after my dog, for coming up to 8 years now. And so I've got a couple of wonderful nutritionists that work with me. We've got a fabulous back office team as well, because we work with hundreds and hundreds of people now, which is very exciting. And we really specialise in food behaviours. So there's so many people out there who say, I know what to do with food, but I just don't do it. And we know that in fitness, there's a lot of people that judge and shame themselves for the ways that they feel about food, the ways that they eat. And I think for most people, it isn't just as simple as knowing what to do and being able to do it. There's lots of different barriers that people face when it comes to food. So we really focus on getting deep into that stuff with our clients so that we've got an understanding, and then we can support them with proper lifelong change rather than just giving people a calorie target or a meal plan, which they can stick to while they work with somebody. But we're not going to see real lifelong changes and people feeling empowered around food from those sorts of things. So that's what we do with our one-to-one nutrition clients. I also mentor quite a lot of coaches within the fitness industry and within the fitness space. We do some work in schools, we do some corporate stuff, all in relation to nutrition and food. So there's lots of different things that we do. And ultimately, it's just about helping people realise that everybody deserves to be healthy, happy, and feel free around food. And obviously, yeah, that means lots of nutritious foods and fueling our bodies, but also being able to enjoy food as well.
I literally love that so much. And I think that, like, I resonate with the part of enjoyment and stuff that you've just spoken to, that you talk about on your socials. I feel like that's been lost a little bit. And even when you see, you know, somebody not being able to enjoy that experience, like, it's quite sad. So I absolutely love that, and I can't wait to dive into, like, all things food relationship and things like that. But before we do, this is such a random question, but it's something I always ask my guests, and it's so funny what kind of, like, different answers come out of this. But if a camera followed you around for a day, what's the one thing you feel it would be, like, surprised or even shocked to see, like, you doing?
Do you know what? It's really hard, I think. And I was going to say, I don't know if people would actually be surprised by this, but my life is very much just the normal, I was going to say boring, like day-to-day stuff. I am so grateful for just the everyday things, just like going through life, running my businesses, catching up with clients, being on calls, eating normal meals. Because for so long, when I struggled with food myself, I didn't ever think I'd get to a place where, you know, food was just normal and it wasn't stressful and it wasn't overwhelming. And then, you know, going to the gym and strength training for health rather than just aesthetics. Just normal day-to-day stuff that doesn't come from a place of punishment or restriction. And that's genuinely what my life looks like. But I do think anybody that follows me or knows me would probably be expecting that anyway. I'm definitely a massive husband's girl. So I probably put out there that I'm like this strong, independent woman, but then my husband is everything to me. Like, he's my whole world. He is the most amazing man I've ever met in my life. So I'm very, very lucky. But I do think you can be strong and independent and then need a man as well.
Yeah, me
even
too.
though we probably wouldn't want to admit it, but yeah, I definitely need him. So that's the only thing I can think of, really, because my life is just the day-to-day stuff. It's not massively exciting or glamorous at all. But I love it that way.
Yeah, I love that. Do you have kind of like a structure in terms of, does every day look completely different? Because I'm assuming, I mean, I'm just speaking from my experience here, but I think it depends what days maybe you have calls and go to the gym and stuff. Like, are you like a structure person that you
Oh
like
yeah,
knowing, like, yeah, I thought so. So
very
you kind of,
routine.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I thought that everybody sort of operated in that way. But
Mm,
then I was actually diagnosed autistic in January 2025. And I remember on the assessment, like sort of talking to them about routine and structure and how I've basically built my life and business to suit a neurodivergent brain. And obviously, with autism, I am very, very routined and do stuff in set ways and at set times. And they
mm.
were like, no, most people aren't like that. And I was like, all right, okay. um, so yeah, routine is everything to me.
Yeah. What you kind of touched on there with your autism diagnosis, do you mind talking about that a little bit? Because
No.
obviously, like 2025 is really not that, it's not that long ago. So have you known for like a long time that, that was.
So I was diagnosed with ADHD, it'll be 4 years ago now.
Mm,
And that made a lot of sense, like when I got that diagnosis. And I think with any diagnosis, especially when it's a condition that's been lifelong and people are diagnosed in later life, you almost start looking back over all of the years previously, and it's like, oh my gosh, this all makes so much sense.
mm,
So being diagnosed with ADHD definitely had that impact. But then there's lots of symptoms of ADHD that I either really, really resonate with the symptoms or really don't. So, a
mm,
lot of people with ADHD struggle to maintain a routine, whereas for me, I'm like, no, it has to be routine. Like there's distress or upset if things don't work the way that I thought they would. And obviously that
mm.
is something that I've worked a lot on, but there were many symptoms of ADHD that I didn't relate to. So that was when, and to be fair, when I was diagnosed with ADHD, they were like, it would be worth you having an assessment for autism as well. So then a few years later, I actually went through the NHS. And I think there's a lot of people that think, oh my God, there's really long waiting lists. Like there's no point speaking to my GP. But I would absolutely urge people to do that if they are thinking about getting an assessment, because
Mm.
within 6 months I'd been referred, assessed, diagnosed. Um, so yeah, I can't remember what the question was. Was it if it did it change anything?
I can't remember myself. I think it was like if you knew that it,
Oh, if I
even
knew.
as like a child.
Yeah, definitely. 100%. Yeah, I've always known. I guess I've always felt like there was something different and I just couldn't put
Mm,
my finger on it. Um so then now knowing that, okay, that's what it is. And I think so much of it as well, it allows me to work with my brain instead of against it.
yeah.
So instead of feeling like you're constantly fighting an uphill battle, and don't get me wrong, like there's still some stuff that's difficult. Like for me, ADHD is quite spontaneous and quirky and fun, whereas there's parts of autism that can 100% be disabling. Like I'm not going to lie about that. Um, but understanding yourself and your brain and what you need to be able to function and then thrive as well, I think that
Mm,
is really important.
yeah. And did you kind of feel like a sense of relief in a way when you actually got that diagnosis for yourself?
With ADHD, yes, but with autism, no. So
Mm,
when I was being assessed for autism, I was like, is it anxiety? Is it OCD? I didn't
mm,
actually, and to be fair, I didn't. When it comes to being diagnosed with anything, it's not necessarily that I wanted that label. It's more like, right, I just wanted to understand myself more. But with autism, I definitely didn't want it to be autism. That sounds awful. Um, but I think autism is misunderstood and there's a huge lack of representation. Like if we think about the people we see on Love is Blind, obviously with autism, there's a spectrum, and that's what everybody sort of relates autism to. And I think it's really hard because I don't look or act autistic. Like, I'm very, very high functioning. And obviously in many ways I'm so grateful for that. Like, this isn't me saying I want to be more disabled than I am, but I think there's a big lack of understanding that the ways autism impacts people, especially women, does vary in so many different ways, and that can be hard.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's kind of like the same representation, even in the way of maybe like a TV series or things like that. I know that you've, shared quite a bit online as well with battling anorexia as well and like eating disorders when you were obviously younger and mental health issues as well. So obviously like whatever you feel comfortable with, but could you share like a little bit more about that story from when you were younger and what kind of like led you to doing like what you do today?
100%, 100%. So yeah, and it all really does link into neurodiversity as well, because
Yeah.
when we look at the increased risk of somebody struggling with an eating disorder, if they are neurodivergent, those risks are so much higher. Like the links with autism and anorexia and orthorexia, and then ADHD and binge eating and bulimia are so strong. So yeah, when I was 14, I was diagnosed with anorexia, and it basically started off from such a young age. And I know you asked, or did you have traits when you were younger? And yes, definitely, definitely around food, especially. So I was always like a picky eater, and I'd go through phases of just eating the same thing on repeat. And I mean for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, not just
Oh my
the
gosh.
same lunch. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I went
yeah.
through phases of just eating Cocoa Pops or just eating apples, which obviously is not healthy, but a lot of kids do go through phases like that. So if any parents are listening and they're like, oh my God, my kid will only eat Cocoa Pops, phases with food are normal for kids. It's fine. But yeah, so I was always a picky eater and quite obsessive and restrictive, and I had a lot of sensory issues around food. And both of my parents, when I was growing up, massively struggled with their mental health, still do now. So a lot of my like fussy eating was just seen as something that they didn't have the capacity for. So over time, gradually, things just became more and more restrictive. And then in primary school, I was bullied for being overweight, and for having tree trunk legs. So from a very young age, I was made aware of the shape and size of my body.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
went through periods of time when I was younger of just being very restrictive with food and not eating certain things, because with neurodiversity as well, it can be very difficult to sense normal bodily functions like hunger and fullness. So yeah, through periods of time when I was younger, my weight would fluctuate just depending on what I was or wasn't eating at the time. And I very quickly learned that I got attention and like concern if my body weight dropped. And then as I grew up, that became a cycle that I was very much trapped in. So yeah, was diagnosed with anorexia when I was 14, and that developed into binge eating and bulimia, and then depression and anxiety as well. As I was very much trapped in this cycle of at points wanting to recover from anorexia. So then, and the treatment with anorexia is to try and get you weight restored as quickly as possible, which obviously, if somebody's very, very underweight, that's what's needed, right? Because it's an immediate health concern.
Yeah.
But back then, I think support is a little bit better now, but definitely not where we need it to be. There wasn't the psychological support of how to deal with that weight gain. And obviously, if somebody's been starving themselves for such a long period of time and they start eating all of this food again, it's so difficult to stop. So that was sort of where the binge eating and
Yeah.
bulimia developed, because I remember when I started making myself vomit after eating, it wasn't intentional. I'd just eaten a huge amount of food and I was in pain. So in my head, the logical thing was to go and make myself sick. of course that's not logical. Of course that's horrendous. It's not a solution to eating too much food, right? But back then, I didn't have the support or the safe space from my parents to open up about how I was feeling.
Yeah.
And yeah, before I knew it, anorexia had developed into bulimia. And I was stuck in that battle and that cycle for 8 to 10 years,
Wow.
which was obviously a very long time.
Mm.
And then as I grew up as well, I started binge drinking and partying to just because my brain was just full of thoughts of food and my body, and I couldn't switch that noise off in any other way apart from just drinking myself into oblivion. So I got stuck in very dangerous and unhealthy habits with partying, which on top of eating disorders was just a lot. And it was only when I moved in with friends in my early 20s that I sort of had more stability and I guess that family environment of people around me, like sitting down at the table and eating meals. And I hadn't had that when I was growing up, not consistently anyway. So having that support and friends there was really like the turning point that helped me get to a place where I was like, yeah, I do want to recover and I want to do that properly. Because I think when somebody struggled with eating disorders from such a young age, it's not just a case of deciding you want to recover, clicking your fingers, and then it's done.
No.
Like it's a very, very up and down journey. And for so long, food or restriction had been how I coped with life. So it took a lot of unlearning and getting things wrong so many times for me to get to the place where I am now.
Yeah. Gosh, like hearing you as well just talk about moving in with your friends early 20s and that you'd gone through all of that up until that point, it just goes to show how young you were when it all kind of like started. Do you know what I mean? Like it really puts it into perspective, doesn't it? My gosh. So do you feel like the anxiety and the depression, was that like after the anorexia, or was that more so after the binge eating, or was that during kind of like like when did that kind of like start to develop? Like,
I think that was probably ongoing the whole time
yeah,
because, I mean, eating disorders are a mental health condition, right? Nobody is
yeah,
in a good space mentally if
no,
they are struggling with an eating disorder. So they often coincide together.
yeah,
But now I know that I've got ADHD and autism. It's not that I don't think I was struggling with depression and anxiety at the same time as eating disorders, but there's so many symptoms of autism and ADHD that if unmanaged and if somebody is dysregulated, they are going to present as depression and anxiety.
mm,
So I think this is why the more we talk about eating disorders and the links with neurodiversity, people can have understanding for themselves or for family members or friends. And it's not that we have to diagnose people or say, oh, you're not depressed, you've just got ADHD. Like it's these things can exist together, right? But
mm,
it's knowing that for some demographics of people, food and nutrition can be much, much harder than for others.
yeah, 100%. And like you've just said, I don't think, I think people sometimes have this idea that it needs to be labeled as like one thing or another
Mm,
thing, and it's like things can't coexist together, which I think is a really important point as well. But it was almost kind of like having that awareness around what was going on, I think, wasn't it, as well? And just knowing, oh, okay, that might be a reason for that and things like that. But yeah, thank you for sharing that. Everybody's story is so unique to them, but there's a couple of things that you mentioned there that I could like resonate with. So thank you for sharing that. Um, so going back to your early 20s when you like moved in with your friends, you had more of that family dynamic, and it's for me it's quite crazy to think that you didn't kind of have that, you know, consistency of like sitting down at mealtime and things like that. So
mm,
yeah, I can imagine that that had such an effect on behaviors for you as well. Do you feel like that was not much so like a turning point, but do you feel like that was the moment where you were like, oh, actually, I really want to make this change? Or was it more kind of like gradual rather than it just being like a one thing?
Yeah, I think it was more gradual. I got to the
Mm.
point where, I'll be honest, I was sick of my own shit. I was sick of, because when I lived with my mum and dad, it was so easy for me to hide things. It was so easy to
Mm.
lie because we didn't really have that family unit and structure anyway. It was easy, and this is me saying like get away with it in air quotes, because you're not getting away with anything when you've got eating disorders. It's literally, destroying your life. Um, but I got sick of my own shit. I was like, there must be more to life than all
Mm.
of these obsessions with food and constantly trying to shrink my body. And I mean, my weight fluctuated drastic amounts in such short spaces of time. And that's not good for anybody, physically, mentally,
No.
or emotionally. And I just thought there has to be more to life. Like, my friends eat normally, they make meals together, they sit down at a table, they make a normal, and what is normal, right? Because everybody's normal with food is different, but they make a normal packed lunch for work, and they're not obsessing about these things. They're just living their lives, and food is what allows them to do that.
Mm.
Um, so it was definitely more gradual than like this one sort of moment, I guess.
Mm.
But I mean, I had periods of time in my life when I was younger where I would go to bed and dream about not waking up because I just wanted it all to stop. Like, I never planned to take my life, but I just thought I was a burden, my life was a waste. And it's crazy to go from that to where I am now. Um, but I got to the point where I was realized that I was just wasting my life, and that was very much a driving point for me as well.
Yeah, gosh. Just to share with you as well, I have a very, very close family member who was also diagnosed with anorexia at the same age, actually. So I haven't obviously been in that place, but it was very close to home. For you, when you say like I was diagnosed, did you have like counseling or doctor's appointments that led up to that? Because I'm assuming that that diagnosis was based on your weight more so than what was going
Mm.
on up here. So obviously it was going on for you for probably a lot longer than that actual diagnosis, because like you say, you were struggling from as early as primary school, which is like, I
Yeah.
mean, as young as like 9, 10, 11, isn't it? So what did that actual kind of like diagnosis like look like for you?
So that was it was a combination of through my GP, where I would be going for checks and sort of to get weighed, and then I did have therapy as well. But it was my
Yeah.
GP that referred me to mental health services that then diagnosed me with anorexia. Um, and I think this, what you said there is really interesting. Like, it was based on your weight and your BMI, which it is.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
how anorexia is diagnosed. But this is the problem we see with eating disorders. That it's only actually 6% of people with an eating disorder that are underweight. So the
It's
majority of
hard.
people,
Yeah.
yeah, the
It's
majority of people
baffling.
struggling are either like a healthy weight or in a larger body. And now we have a type of anorexia called atypical anorexia, which is where somebody doesn't meet the criteria on BMI of being underweight, but they're still struggling with symptoms of anorexia. And actually, so when I was diagnosed with anorexia and I was visibly underweight, people were so much more concerned. But then when my weight rebounded and I was struggling with bulimia, binge eating, and still symptoms of anorexia, like day to day, I would restrict drastically. But at that point, people just thought, oh, I'd taken my recovery too far, or I was fixed because I wasn't underweight anymore. So there's such a lack of understanding that it is a mental health condition. And actually, regardless of the shape and size of somebody's body, that psychological impact of eating disorders can be the same.
It's mad, isn't it? It's like people being turned away from
Mm.
the GP and actually getting on a list where they really, really need the help. But like you say, because they're not like technically underweight in terms of like their BMI, they can't get that help. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just awful, isn't it? And that's why I absolutely love what you do, because I am so passionate about a lot of the same things like mindset and food relationship and things. And what you described there, I've never heard it labeled like that. Did you say like atypical?
Atypical anorexia, yeah. So
That
it's,
that was me, I think, because I
yeah,
very much struggled a lot later when I was in my early, not even early, yeah, early to mid 20s. But it's really interesting hearing you describe it like that, because I think people struggle more so to understand something when they can't see it.
yes,
And it's
yeah.
all the stuff that's going on the inside that has such a detrimental effect on you, but you can't see it. So it's very
But doesn't that
different,
just
isn't it?
show how much we judge people on their physical appearance? It's like
Yeah.
deciding if people are poorly enough for treatment. And do you know what, right? I get it. When the NHS is stretched, there has
Yeah.
to be some way, and this might sound awful and really blunt and to the point, but if somebody's near death because they're underweight, they have to be prioritized for
Oh
treatment. I
God,
get
yeah.
that. But it can then just be so difficult if somebody's felt like, right, I'm going to go and speak to my GP or a medical professional because I am struggling with food and I want some help and support, to then be told, oh, you can't access treatment because you don't meet the BMI criteria. Like, that is just so devastating when it takes so long for people to actually build up and be brave enough to go and reach out for support.
Yeah, no, you're so right. I'm so thankful that you know, you doing what you're doing today. I just think it's so inspirational because of everything that you've like been through. It's led you down this, do you know what I mean? It's led you down this
Yeah.
career path. It's interesting, isn't it, that kind of like we end up doing something that we're so passionate about, and a lot of the time it's because we've been through something. Like there's, I mean, I can tell you now, if I hadn't have been through what I've been through, I wouldn't be sat talking to you here today. Because do you know what I mean? It was never something that I
Yeah.
thought about doing. I don't know about you.
No, no, no. Yeah, I'm exactly the same. Like, a massive sort of turning point for me as well was educating myself on nutrition. And that was
Mm,
actually why I wanted to get qualified, because I was like, right, I really want to understand something that I've struggled with for so long. And there's so many people that work in the fitness industry that have a background of eating disorders or disordered eating, and actually educating themselves has then been a big part of that recovery process. Because I always say,
mm,
if I had understood nutrition and if I'd understood what my body needed to thrive, I don't think I would have struggled with eating disorders for as long as I did. But we aren't
mm.
taught this stuff, are we? And this is one reason we go into schools. And yes, we educate them on nutrition, but we also talk to them about social media and body ideals and body image and the patriarchy and diet culture. So actually
Yeah.
going into schools and having these conversations with kids about, yep, this is how to have a balanced, nutritious diet, but also if you can't eat a pizza with your mates or enjoy a slice of cake at a birthday party, then that's not healthy. So yeah, being able to now educate kids and look at it from that perspective as well is very cool.
I love so much that you're doing that. I used to be a teacher, um,
Um,
Welsh high school, but primary school as well. Just from being in that environment, there's just when I was there anyway, and I've worked in a number of different schools, there wasn't really any just awareness around that or help for kids. And like you've said and touched on your story, it happened really, really young for you. And it really makes me like sad to say this, but it's just reality, isn't it? As like girls as young as 8, 9, 10, like literally worried
mm,
about the way that they look and looking at food a certain way and stuff. So I absolutely love that, because that is actually something that I didn't know about you before this conversation. So that's really cool.
yeah, it is. It's very much needed. And like, the questions we get from kids are heartbreaking, like asking, oh, how to diet, or how many calories do I need, from like kids that are 6 or 7.
Oh
But
my
it's difficult
God.
as well. Yeah, it's difficult because there's so much pressure on teachers. And when we've gone into schools, teachers don't even understand nutrition for themselves.
No,
Um,
no.
so how teachers are then supposed to educate kids on this is,
Yeah.
it's just, yeah, I wish we could get into every school in the UK. Like, I wish we had the capacity, and I wish it was actually possible.
Yeah, yeah, no, I get you completely. And that's something I wanted to talk about as well, just whilst we're on the different things that you do. Can you tell me a little bit about your awards? Because I know that you're an award-winning nutritionist, but I would love for you to kind of like dive in on like what those actually are, because I was like, oh, this is so cool. But also like I would love for you to just like share with me what that is and what it looked
So,
like.
yeah, so it's a Yorkshire-based business of like awards event.
Mm.
It celebrates women in business. So all different business owners achieving lots of different things. There's so many different categories that are really, really cool. And they run it every
Wow.
year, and then people vote, and that's what determines the winners. But yeah, so we've won online business of the year, and I've won inspirational woman of the year, which actually was like, I don't feel like that one. I was a little bit like, obviously I was really happy to win it, but I was like, oh my god, there's so many people doing really cool stuff.
Mm.
And I was really grateful, but then I was a little bit like, oh, I feel like a bit of an imposter with that one.
What do you feel like is kind of like the hardest part of what you do?
I don't, I wouldn't say I find anything hard. I think like the amount of misinformation in the fitness space is challenging, because people that spread misinformation have such a huge platform, and they've got
Mm.
documentaries on TV. So that, I mean, if I was to track the amount of conversations I have each week about misinformation, I genuinely don't think I'd be able to count the amount of questions I answer about supplements and detox protocols and this new fad that's come out. Um, so I think that is probably frustrating. And
Mm.
then the narrative as well that all weight loss is healthy.
Mm.
Um, and of course, there's lots of people that want to focus on losing weight for health, and lots of our clients are in fat loss phases. But we know for some people, like, weight loss is not what they need to improve health. So I think that narrative in the fitness industry, alongside misinformation, is probably challenging. But day to day, I just
Love it.
feel so lucky and so grateful. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I love that. I definitely want to dive into like the fitness industry, because if I'm just so like honest on here, that is one of the things that like drew me to you. Like just like you getting a camera out and just cutting through the bullshit, basically. There's a lot of misinformation and just
Mm,
noise. A lot of clients that I work with as well, like the amount, like you say, just the amount of questions. And some of the questions, I even hear some things new now, and I'm like, it just completely baffles me. So I would love to move on to that. But before we do, I actually, just on something you said there with not everybody needing to lose weight, if someone were to come to you and in their head their goal is to lose weight, but actually as a coach and as a professional in the space, you know that actually it's something else that needs working on. Do you find that quite like a difficult conversation, obviously trying to kind of communicate to them that actually this is what needs looking at first?
I think, say, and this is where it's very difficult, right? Because if somebody comes to me and weight loss is one of their goals, and they are
Mm.
not in like a larger body, weight loss wouldn't improve health. We then have to look at, right, is weight loss healthy for aesthetic reasons? And that doesn't mean it's necessarily going to improve physical health, but for some people, they aren't overweight, they want to diet for aesthetics, that's fine. That's
Mm.
okay. I'd actually much rather people do that with us who are gonna, we're gonna protect their relationship with food. We're gonna support them with body image as well. So they're not basing all of their worth on that aesthetic goal. But, if somebody comes to us with a weight loss goal and they don't have a period, for example, then we are not going to put that person in a dieting phase. It's not really, say somebody has an aesthetic goal, it's not up to us to talk them out of it. If, it's fine for them to diet for aesthetics, it's us to do that with them in as much of a healthy way as possible. But if somebody doesn't have a period or somebody is already drastically restricting, then we would have to have a conversation with them about, right, what are your reasons for wanting to do this? What do you think weight loss is going to add to your life? And usually, we'd always do this over a call as well. I don't think over emails or messages you can really have these sorts of conversations. People will start to have that realization that, maybe I've been chasing a smaller body my whole life. I don't actually need to lose weight to improve my health. And being trapped in this cycle of just constantly trying to shrink myself is just shrinking my life. But I think, and to be fair, we do have a dietitian on the team that she does an Apollo nutrition package. So, and she specializes in like serious disordered eating or eating disorders. So if we get somebody that is very much in that place, because we know as well, if somebody is underweight and they are seeking further weight loss, then they probably meet some criteria for an eating disorder, but it's not our job to sort of say that to them, right? But we do then have people that we can refer out to. And I think for other coaches as well, that is important if you are coming across clients in that position.
Yeah, no, definitely. Definitely. And in terms of different tools and techniques around improving your relationship with food, because I've obviously seen you speak to, examples of that with clients on like your Instagram and things like that. Do you maybe mind sharing, I don't know, like just an example or a couple of your like go-tos maybe, like what you use them for and how they help your clients in real life? Like I'd be really interested to see if there's any that you do that I maybe practice as well or ones that I haven't even heard of.
Yeah, our most popular one that I think we use with pretty much every single client is the pause. So it's getting people to practice pausing before they eat anything. So even when it's planned food and it's like, right, this is what I know I'm going to have for my breakfast because I've planned it in advance, just sort of checking in with your body. How are you feeling? Are you feeling calm? How hungry are you? And also the reasons for eating that food as well, because so many people just eat on autopilot. They don't take a second to think about the choice that they're making. Food choices just aren't intentional. We know so many people lead really busy, really high stress lives, and often people are just flying throughout their day, grabbing at food as they go without really coming back to the present moment. So getting into the habit of pausing before you eat anything. What are my intentions with this? Am I hungry for it? How much do I think I want? Will help to reduce more mindless food choices. And then with our clients as well, we always get them to come up with plan B food options. So we're massive on planning and being organised with food, not from a place of restriction, but from a place of we all lead busy lives and we need to be trying to make food choices in advance. Because
Organized, yeah.
because if you leave it to in the moment when you've had a really long day and it's like, oh, there's nothing in, don't know what I want for dinner, you're either going to skip a meal or ring a takeaway. And obviously, occasionally we all do those things, but we don't just want that to be the norm, right? So we get all our clients to be planning and to be organised and to make decisions when they feel in a good place before decision fatigue kicks in. But plan B options are for when shit hits the fan, for when life happens. If you're stuck at work late, you're in traffic, you're being the taxi of mum or dad for the kids and you just don't have the time So your initial plan isn't going to work, but you've then always got stuff in the cupboard or in the freezer that you can just grab. So something that's super quick and easy, that you know is going to be pretty nutritious. You can throw it in the air fryer or the microwave and you've got something there to go. So those are the pause and plan B options that we use with our clients day in, day out. And obviously it takes a really long time for people to get to the place where they're using these things and they're working, because we know nothing works perfectly. Like now, I mean, I did a post this morning. Another tool that we use with our clients is getting them to plate up snacks on plates or bowls rather than just eating out of packets. So even like a packet of crisps, how many times have you sat down with a packet and then hit the bottom and been like, I don't even remember taking
shit. They're all gone.
Yeah. And there's like
Yeah.
that disappointment. You do it with like share bags of chocolate and without even realizing you've got to the bottom without,
Oh, is this
being,
your post about the sweets?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So like, I talk about this stuff all day, but last night sat on the sofa to watch. Have you seen Unchosen?
No, but I did see your comment that was like, what the fuck? So I'm kind of
So weird.
intrigued. What is it?
Oh, it's about this cult. Um, yeah, it's interesting, but yeah, it's
Is it like a
bizarre.
documentary or like a
No, it's
drama?
like a series.
Hmm. Oh.
It's just yeah, it's a bit weird. It's very weird. It's good though. Like I recommend. Yeah. So yeah, sat on the sofa, preaching all day, supporting clients with making sure, right, most of the time, because we're not going to do this stuff all the time, you get a little bowl or a little plate, you pop your snack on and you sit down with it, you put the packet away. But didn't take my own advice last night, sat down with the whole packet and nailed pretty much all of it. So, using these techniques and having this stuff that we go through with clients, it's all stuff I still use myself, but it doesn't work all the time, and that's okay. That's just part of being human. Doesn't mean we've fucked up. It doesn't mean we've done anything wrong. We've got no reason to feel guilty. And I actually wrote an email out about it as well, because I was like, less unhealthy habits is progress. Doing this stuff less. So now me sitting down and eating a full packet of sweets is rare, where in the past I'd have either not allowed myself to eat any sweets ever or eaten numerous full packets of sweets.
Yeah,
So,
and
me not restricting and me not binging on sweets and occasionally nailing a whole packet, but most of the time I don't, because I'm able to portion it up. Like that is progress.
yeah, I love that. And it's just like this idea, isn't it, of like perfectionism, of you having to do everything perfect like every single day, like all the time. That's what I find a lot of clients that I work with when they come to me. It's this idea, of the whole good versus bads in like terms of food, and coming with not realizing that they can have, like you say, those sweets or those chocolate or whatever it is in like moderation. What do you feel like is like the biggest, I don't know, like problem that your clients kind of like struggle with, or maybe like the biggest mistake that women, or do you work with men as well?
Yeah. We've got
Yeah.
quite a few male clients.
Mm.
Biggest mistake, I think, probably not realizing that dieting should be a phase. Like it's not a way
Mm.
to live your life. And if somebody feels like the amount of people I speak to who are like, oh, I feel like I've been dieting for 20 years. And I'm like, right, that's a food relationship issue. It's
Yeah,
not a
yeah, yeah.
dieting problem. It's that we need to work on your relationship with food. But so many people think they'll fix that with another diet. And instead of seeing dieting as this temporary phase, we want to get in, we want to commit to it. And that does entail being hungry. That does entail saying no. Like, as compassionate as we are when it comes to relationship with food and people having balance and moderation, you can't get around the fact that to lose body fat, you have to be in a deficit. And I would so much rather be honest with clients about that, than have people fannying around and yo-yo dieting while working with me and not achieving the goal that they set out to achieve. We should go into it, we should diet, we should tick it off, and then work on like that maintenance phase and food freedom, because dieting is not a way to live your life forever. It's not supposed to be fun. I always see coaches saying you can live your best life and diet without restricting, and I'm like, you can't. So yeah, biggest mistake, not viewing dieting as a temporary phase.
But do you still think that people can enjoy their food still when they're in that like dieting phase?
To a certain extent, yeah, absolutely. There's healthier ways to diet for sure, and we still want to get enjoyment from food where we can. I think that is really, really important. So making sure you are planning things in that you enjoy, but it's going to look different to maintenance.
Oh God, yeah. I would love to kind of like talk a bit about the fitness industry, because I know we've touched on the fact there's lots of conflicting information online, and I know you're passionate about this. We'll call people out and things like that. So what is the most like, maybe there's more than one thing, but what's something like, I don't know, a ridiculous thing you've seen recently and you're like, oh, that's bullshit. Like, I want to tell the listeners about this thing that's just like bullshit. Like, what would that one or two things even, like, what would that thing be? Like, what's the first thing that like comes to your head that you're like, yeah, that was ridiculous?
Well, I'm literally halfway through typing up a post about, there's a gut health functional Chinese medicine doctor. It's not a real doctor.
Right.
On the, yeah. She's got a massive following, and she's basically typed up a post blaming fruit for people's bloating and poor gut health, and saying that I honestly can't believe it's so bizarre. Saying that when you eat fruit after a meal, it sits at the top of your gut and ferments. Now this is, that does not happen for anybody listening. We'd be in serious trouble if it did happen. But this was a myth that was around, it's got to be over 20 years ago, that was disproved by so much research. Yet she's clinging on to that to try and get followers to buy into this gut health healing detox plan that she sells. So I think probably that, and then the one about consuming more dietary fat means you burn more body fat. That has been around forever, and I wish it's genuinely only because dietary fat has the same name as body fat. So people then think, oh, if I'm using fat for fuel, that translates to fat on my body. But it's, if somebody is eating more dietary fats, absolutely fine if people want to, and we know we need a certain amount of fat in our diets for health, but it doesn't then mean you are a fat burning machine. It just means you're using dietary fat as fuel. And we actually know that for our bodies, carbs are the preferred energy source. They're the most efficient energy source for our bodies and brains. So all of the keto dickheads out there saying you need to eat more fat to burn more fat, and carbs cause you to store fat, it's just, it's not correct.
The whole keto thing just completely baffles me. When I was younger, my mum is, bless her, has tried every diet under the sun. And I remember her being in the bathroom doing this thing with like a stick, and I was like, what are you doing? And she was obviously checking that she was in
ketones.
Yeah, and I honestly, some of the things she's done, but again, like it's not her fault. It's those kind of people speaking to something. Someone sees something like, oh, you're an expert in this space. You're saying that this is going to help me burn belly fat. I'm going to go and buy that thing to help me. So it's like,
but I've been there myself as well. This is, it's one reason that I hate misinformation, because like when I had eating disorders, you were getting misinformation from magazines or TV. Whereas now you open social media and the majority of fitness and nutrition advice you see is incorrect. So it's thrust into people's faces so much more accessibly than when I was growing up. And I know that misinformation kept me trapped with disordered eating and eating disorders for so long. And I'm the same as your mum. I've literally tried everything. So when I
Yeah.
talk about misinformation, it doesn't come with any judgment for anybody believing this stuff, because like it's a lot of it is so believable. These people talk about it with such confidence. But that's why it's dangerous as well, right? Because
Yeah.
people are so desperate for those answers with food and fitness that they're vulnerable to end up falling for these things.
Yeah. And obviously, like a lot of people want like a quick answer and something to sort their problem like yesterday. So if someone's like promising this is going to do whatever in like 30 days, they're more likely to obviously like opt into something like that. There's this guy that I do not follow him. I follow someone who likes to call this guy out, kind of like in a similar way to you do. But I can't think what his name is, but he literally scaremongers, and it really, really rattles my gears. I can't, like, he goes to like supermarkets and will like literally
Oh,
pull
I
out.
know who you mean. Is it
Do
tonic
you? Yeah,
health?
so
Go and like pull out, he'll go and like
he
pull
pulls
out
out things
croissants
out of like,
from
yeah,
the bakery.
there's a lot, isn't there?
And like none of this stuff is what's going to take somebody from not eating well and eating healthily and supporting their health to being able to do that, right? It always comes back to the basics of nutrition, the foundations, like building a solid base and understanding how to eat a balanced diet, what that looks like for you, how to build balanced meals, how that works with your busy life. So we need practical options in there as well. And then knowing what portion sizes look like, how to navigate life with that freedom and flexibility, like that is what works every single time. But you can't package that up in a sexy, shiny supplement that promises the world in 30 days. So that's why it is so much harder, because coaches like us are saying to people, no, if you want to change your life, we have to strip all of that shit back and just focus on the basics.
Mm,
And that is what works, but
yeah,
so
I
many
think it's
people
hard
are.
to hear, isn't it? Like,
It is.
you know, for some people, like you say, like who want their results like yesterday, and you're like, well, actually, the mindset stuff, like stripping it back, like you say, going back to basics, like that is going to make like the biggest impact and the biggest change. And it can be quite hard to hear, I think, for people who have been promised maybe like, you know, abs in 30 days or whatever that thing might have been. What's the first thing that you'd, I don't know, that I know that everybody is obviously like completely different circumstance, lifestyle, like all of the things. But if someone comes to you and they're like, I feel like really, really stuck, what's the first like step? You know, where do you kind of like start with them?
So with people on like an individual basis, it's obviously working out why they feel stuck. So like what their
Mm.
barriers are. Because so many people come to me saying, oh, it's just excuses. I just need more discipline. And I'm like, no, we ban the word excuses at Apollo Nutrition. Like barriers, we can overcome together. So it's what your barriers are, like how these things impact your life. And then we make a plan in that way. But for people listening, I think the best place to start is asking yourself, how would I feed somebody that I love? So if I was the one responsible for making all of my partner's meals or all of my child's meals, which obviously for parents, there'll be a lot of people that are doing that. Like, what would that look like? How would I plan it? How would I fuel them? And then thinking about your own food in the same way. Like, I was literally going through stuff with one of my clients earlier, and she was showing me all of these amazing recipes that she's making for her daughter, like these smoothie bowls and like these just delicious meals. And I was like, well, let's just make an extra portion for you, like an adult portion, obviously. But you're going to all of this effort. and then you don't feel like you're worthy of that yourself. You know, you're going out of your way to look after everybody else and make sure that she's taken care of, but your capacity to be able to do that is going to be limited unless we start looking after you. So yeah, thinking about the ways that you would feed somebody that you love if you were responsible for all of their meals, and then planning ahead. Like you can't wing nutritious eating in 2026. It's not. We've got to think about our food environment and how challenging that makes things, and how we were talking about how people are just hardwired for that quick fix. Like it's completely understandable. So when that comes to food and our food environment, if we aren't planning in advance, if we aren't setting ourselves up to win, then people are going to make less nutritious choices. And it's so easy to get stuck in that cycle of, oh, well, I'll start again next week. I'll worry about it when life calms down. Well, if it doesn't work when life isn't, no.
I feel like there's always something, like you say, there are going to be things around you and social events and people at work with cake and things like that. Like it's just a part of life, isn't it, really?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, we want to plan in advance. And then when there's foods that people find tough, so like foods maybe that people don't trust themselves around, or they find it can trigger overeating or sort of spiraling into that fuck it mode, or they just don't allow themselves to eat these foods at all, I would work on building those in to how you want to eat day to day, week to week. So actually planning in the foods that you find difficult. Like one of my clients I was just talking to about, she was like, I can't trust myself with share bars of chocolate. So I'm like, right, we're gonna set you up for success. So 3 times a week, after you've had your dinner and you're feeling satisfied, we're just gonna start off with a small bar of dairy milk. And then once she's done that for a period of time and she's realised that she's allowed to enjoy a little bar of chocolate, like she doesn't have to feel guilty, she's not done anything bad, we will eventually then progress on to her having a share bar and being able to break a few bits off and enjoying that. So phasing these things in gradually, because a lot of people I speak to have tried to allow themselves to eat these foods in moderation, but they've gone straight for the bigger bars or the share bags. And it's like, well, we need to take a step back with this stuff and make it realistic, make it achievable. So if you struggle with chocolate buttons, let's just start off with a smaller pack a couple of times a week. And then gradually we can build that trust up within you to be able to move on to share bags and larger bars of stuff. But I would start off with that in moderation and planning it in with the rest of your food that you're having as well.
Yeah, I love that. Because I think it, like you say, it goes back to the self-trust, and people are, oh no, I can't trust myself like to have that in, so I just don't buy any of it. But then of course, when you're out shopping and when you do buy that thing, you're more likely to then have all of it because you've not allowed yourself like any of it. So I really like that. I like the step by step as well, with rather than just stripping off like a piece, starting with. And I think there's something about the packaging, do you know what I mean? Like you're opening something and you're having all of that one thing, even though it's smaller, rather than like, oh, I'll just have a bit more, oh, I'll just have a bit more. Like you'd have to open another one to have, do you know what I mean, to be able to do that. So yeah, no, that's amazing. I love that. So if someone, like one of your clients, for example, were to quote unquote like overdone it, I went out, I did this, I did that, what would be your words of wisdom that you would give to them on that Monday when they're kind of like moving from that panic?
So I think what's most important with this is working out if you have actually overdone it or if you've just enjoyed a bit more food and drink, which is completely normal over a bank holiday, or if you're socialising more. So have you overdone it and eaten to a point of discomfort? Has the eating been mindless? Has it felt out of control? Or have you just enjoyed some more social eating?
Bit more food.
Yeah, which that's completely normal. So in that situation, we'd look at like reducing guilt and talking it through. And, you know, I always say to clients, well, did you have a good time? Yes. Okay. brilliant, absolutely brilliant. That's part of a healthy relationship with food, being able to have stuff like bank holiday or trips away or holidays and be able to eat a bit differently. And that's okay. You've not done anything wrong. It enhances the experience. But then if it's been more like if people have sort of spiraled and it's been more binge behaviors where it does feel out of control, it's then working out why that's happened. So is it because they're feeling guilty about the food and they're saying to themselves, oh, I can't have this, I shouldn't have it. So then that creates a spiral of them thinking, oh, well, I need to start again next week because I've ruined everything. So is that the place that it's coming from? Is it because they're starving themselves before bank holiday, thinking that they need to make room for the indulgences? Is it that they're thinking about compensatory behaviours and burning it all off after the bank holiday's done? Is it because they are saying yes to stuff they don't really want to do? Maybe they're spending time with family over bank holiday and that feels stressful, so that's resulting in some stress eating. Like, usually there's a trigger that's resulting in people overeating, if it's not like a normal amount of overeating. So we need to work out what is triggering that and what's resulting in it to then be able to delve into things and take steps forward. But I think with any sort of overeating, if people, because I always say to my clients, if they say to me, oh, I've overdone it, I'm like, right, if we could go back, would you change it? And quite often, if they've just enjoyed a bit more food socially and they've just, eaten past fullness, they're like, oh, well, no, I wouldn't. And I'm like, right, well, there we go. Like, that's great. But if it's like, oh yeah, well, it was painful, I felt sick after, like it just felt uncomfortable, that's when it's like, right, potentially that's more sort of binge behaviours that we can delve into a little bit more.
Yeah. And like you say, looking at that why rather than, okay, well, let's move on. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
that is not coaching. Like when I
It's not
see,
helpful, is it?
no, I saw a coach do a post after the last bank holiday saying, oh, if you've overeaten, just draw a line under it and crack on. And I'm like, why the fuck are people paying you? Like, your job is to help people get curious about this stuff.
Kind of surface level coaching, if I'm okay to like describe it like that, rather than the kind of thing that you do, which is actually looking like at the deeper kind of stuff, like the why and the behaviors and the stuff that's actually going to help long term. Because, like you say, if that were to happen like a next time, what have they learned from it rather than like, oh, okay, well, today's a new day, I'll just start again, which is probably a pattern they're already
In.
kind of
That's
like
why
moving
they've
forward
come to
in
a
anyway.
coach.
Yeah.
They've come to a coach to break out of that. And, unless we can reflect and learn and then put strategies and tools in place, knowing that it won't be perfect, we've got to keep stressing that point. Like, these tools aren't going to work every single time.
No.
Case in point, me nailing that packet of sweets last night. Like, yeah, we need to have these tools and strategies and ways of supporting ourselves in these situations.
Yeah. I have one last question for you because I've just noticed how long we've been talking. I was like, oh my God, we've been yapping for like over an hour. But I would love to really quickly just find out a bit about that, the event that you went to. I would just love to just hear a little bit about that and what the like takeaways were, because again, I know that you were like there in person, whereas all I've seen is, posts on social media and stuff like that. So what was it like?
Yeah, it was so good. So it's Josh Hills for anybody listening.
Oh,
And he has just launched a book which is called You Can Eat That. So it's
yeah.
literally like a finger up at all of the bellends on the internet that demonize ultra processed foods and carbs and sugar and everything that we see just creating more food fear. And it was just brilliant. So we were chatting on lots of panels and just talking about all of these topics and educating people from an empowered place instead of scaring them, so they actually know how to add more nourishment to their diets, but also how to navigate our food environment and to be able to enjoy food, like lots of the stuff we've been chatting about on this podcast. I think biggest take homes, definitely that nutrition information, at best, it leaves people skint and confused, and at worst, it causes disordered eating. So, that's the reality. I think, when people like everybody with Joe Wicks, when everyone's like, oh, he doesn't deserve calling out because he's a good guy. And I'm like, yeah, but the confusion he
He's
creates
got
with the,
such a big platform. He's got such a
yeah,
big platform, isn't he?
he does. And it's, he's done amazing things for getting people into exercise and
Mm.
training. But when he comes out with the stuff, like all of the demonizing of ultra processed foods, saying that he binged on fruit and relapsed on Jaffa cakes and that sugar
Oh
causes
my God,
ADHD,
don't. Yeah.
all that, and then creating a protein bar to make people shit themselves, like, all that does is terrifies people away from these foods. And the reality of that is that it can result in eating disorders for some people, or it can contribute, because eating disorders are formed with lots of different contributing factors. So for some people already struggling, stuff like that and misinformation can make that so much worse. A massive theme from the whole weekend is that food is more than fuel. So yes, it's fuel, but it's also connection, culture, memories, pleasure,
Enjoyment. Yeah.
all of, yeah, all of these wonderful things. Um, and just how important community is in the
Mm.
fitness industry. Like coming together with people who get it, or other people who are experiencing similar things, not feeling alone with how tough it can be to navigate the fitness industry. I think that was a massive part of the event as well.
It's honestly been such like a breath of fresh air, like talking to you. And I genuinely have learned so much. And it has, I know that you were before, like with your award, like, oh, I don't know, but I think you're an inspiration in the space, honestly. And like I said to you before we started recording, and I'll say it again, I honestly was so thrilled when you were like, yeah, I'll come on the pod, because I've genuinely just loved this conversation. So thank you so, so much for coming on. I've really, I hope that you've enjoyed it just as much as
I
I have
have.
anyway. It's
It's
been
been
great.
so nice.
But
It's been
yeah, it's
lovely.
it's it's nice as well to talk to somebody who like does what you do, but also has the same sort of like beliefs around nutrition and all that kind of thing. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been amazing, and yeah, just thank you.
Thank you for having me.